If there's one constant in the smart home game, it is change, and you're going to see a ton of it here on our latest smart home news. Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. In just a few minutes we're going to talk about what Apple brought out at their developers conference here this year in 2019, and we're also going to talk about a number of new things coming from Google, one new thing coming from Amazon that I think is a real game changer, as well as a number of new smart home devices that have come out here in 2019 or are coming out later in 2019. Finally, I'm going to tell you what I'm bringing to the channel, and on that note, why don't we talk to one of the newest devices here. Ask Hubble to take a photo.
Okay.
Now that is Hugo or Hubble, depending on whether you're talking about the app or the actual device there. You can see the little Echo input that is sitting here. I went and bought that. I also pre-purchased or pre-ordered an Echo Show 5. I'm also on the wait list here through one of our subscribers, Eric, for a Nest Hub Max. So all those big devices will be coming to the channel. You're also seeing, of course, the Wise Sense devices that we've been talking lots about, but SwitchBot right here, we're bringing out the series on that, and this is the first in a series of products from AOTech. That's called the NanoMote Quad, which is a very powerful Z-Wave button actually that connects to SmartThings and a number of other Z-Wave hubs. So you'll see a ton of those products coming onto the channel here in the coming weeks, the coming months even, with some of those. I mean, it's going to take me a while to get through all of that, but on to the other updates. If This Then That is getting a brand new application, and it's currently in beta mode, and there's a beta testing opportunity that I've been given here. What I'll tell you is I'm going to be providing a lot of feedback to If This Then That right now with the current layout, the way the service is working within this new application. It's not something that I think I want to deal with your guys' comments actually from the change in the application. Now there's a big update from Amazon that is basically cross-skill functionality, and this is a real game changer for me, and one of the ways that I see Amazon really leaping ahead of other voice assistants right now. Now what they're talking about doing is between skills, you being able to essentially pass information, and this is part of the developers kit that they've made available, and so now developers of skills can go ahead and integrate this kind of cross-skill passing of information. So for example, how would you use this? Well, let's say you're looking for a movie, so you're talking to skill 1 about what movies are available in your city or in a certain theater set that you frequent. You can go and you can take that to the next skill, which is able to purchase tickets, and you could get a ride scheduled to get to that movie as well. All through this cross skill, it's essentially a dialogue modeling capability. Now that's super powerful, and what I'll tell you is what I see with that. That's how Amazon's going to bring you into shopping on their skill, or what would be their base capability there with their devices. So I bet you didn't think about that when I was first talking about it, but that's where I see it going, is to shopping on Amazon. Ecobee has given us details on a brand new smart thermostat with all 3 voice assistants being capable to control that device, as well as the own app and the apps associated with those different voice assistants. So it's totally HomeKit-enabled. It has a brand new interface on the front that I will say is relatively improved. It's also a smart thermostat with a speaker on it. So that sounds like kind of fun if you wanted your thermostat to become a speaker, and it is intended to be greatly improved over other speakers. Now it's also a Bluetooth capable, so it's able to Bluetooth audio, so it gives you another access point here, which is very interesting. Samsung's Galaxy Home device now has an approximate launch date here, Q3 2019, so Q3 of this year. And the reason I'm talking about that now is I've started to see some of the integration capabilities of their voice assistant Bixby with the SmartThings platform, and I use SmartThings heavily, and I think a lot of people use SmartThings heavily. And what I'm starting to see, we saw the S10 come out, and I was able to get some screenshots and some ideas of the functionality from Tech with Brett. If you guys don't know Tech with Brett, go follow Brett. He's fantastic. But that functionality and what we're starting to see in the new Samsung application is really powerful stuff, where Bixby's integration, I think, will be fantastic. And it's also intended to be the center of a Samsung connected appliance home. So really powerful stuff, and it might actually drive me to go get one of those Galaxy Homes. Philips Hue, which is Paul Hibbert's least favorite lighting solution at this point, but I can't even continue after saying that. They're putting out a LED filament bulb here, or a smart LED filament bulb, as well as a smart plug here within the time frame of September 2019. Now, both of those in true Philips Hue fashion, and what Paul has a beef with is the cost, and they're sounding like they're around $25 US a piece. On the Google front, other than the massive outages we've seen here recently with the Nest and Google Home or Google Assistant being and acting odd, accents changing, things like that. I talked about this in a video earlier this week, but other than those massive outages, Google is doing a lot right now, and there is a lot changing. We will see Netflix on the smart displays here very soon. That seems to be coming out right away, if not already showing up on a few devices out there. Mario, who is a subscriber of the channel, would like you to know that Spanish is available on the smart displays as well. Great to see these languages coming out, being available there. On top of that, we've also seen the inclusion of a speedometer on Google Maps in some cases. This came from Gareth, and he's been following the channel forever, and you would have seen him just this last Saturday actually on our smart home tours. Now, Gareth there, he showed me the speedometer, and my first comment was, well, that's great. I can look at the speed I'm going right up until the point when I crash into something. This has been hanging out there a little while, but I think what we have is a new Google Home Mini basically coming out that would replace the Nest Guard and the Google Home Mini. The reason I say that is this filing with the FCC, that there are a few news reports kind of out there. It has the right numbering level to replace the Google Home, either the standard or the Mini or something like that, but it also includes a battery base, which I would expect to be there for a Nest Guard, because you want that device to continue to perform when there's no power in the home. Now, about that Apple company, and even if you're an Android user, I think there's some pretty interesting things to talk about here. Now, first off, actually, not about the HomePod, but iPad OS. Now, there's a new operating system that is being released for the iPad. Lots of the newest generations and the iPad Pros are going to get this new operating system. The beta testers, or people who have the beta, people who I've talked to, they really enjoy the iPad OS already, and it's in beta mode here. But it kind of has some impacts to the way the smart home would be managed by Apple and their HomeKit. And that's not entirely clear out of the box, but let me give you an example. HomeKit security-enabled cameras. So there's 3 makers here, and I actually have to read this one. Netatmo, Logitech, and Eufy, which is a little bit surprising there, but all 3 of those will be at launch of this HomeKit-enabled smart home camera that you can go ahead and view on any HomeKit-enabled iPhone or iPad. You'd be able to bring up the Home app and have a look at them. Now, what's interesting about what they're doing here is that the devices will take the video or have the video locally in your home, and then it will go to an iPad, an Apple TV, or another, what's the other device here? The HomePod. So the iPad, the HomePod, or an Apple TV will do the local processing. So you would need to have one of those in your home if you wanted this HomeKit enabled. You can't just have an iPhone anymore. That's going to do the local processing, and then it will be sent to Apple's cloud servers if it's required to do that. So if there's something that's occurring that needs to be there, that's where it'll go. For comparison, you know, the Nest cameras, they do local recording on the device and local processing on the device of that recording or whatever they're seeing, and then they send it for face match and to come back with a notification basically to the cloud services. Now, in both cases, those are encrypted services, but it's good to see Apple stepping up, number one, the privacy game, and the camera, the direct camera integration with HomeKit. On that topic of iPad OS, there's also a new ability to pin widgets to the home screen. So this is something with iPad OS specifically, but I think we're going to see it in the new iOS 13 as well, which we need to talk about. Now we have to talk about the HomePod and the voice assistant Siri there. Now Siri is going to sound a lot better to you, or a lot more natural, because she will be completely procedurally generated in iOS 13. As well, the HomePod is going to get that multi-user support that we've been talking about here on the channel, and that is a very important feature. So it's interesting to see Apple continue to put new features into this HomePod, even as we know that second HomePod is being developed. We talked about the camera situation, but the router situation is actually changing as well. And this is, I think, a really positive move in terms of security and smart home security. And this is another differentiator for those of you with an Apple phone and with HomeKit being used. If you have one of these routers, what I'll essentially break it down to is your different HomeKit-enabled devices. You know, the router will manage those devices. Number one, it's going to be every bit as good as any other router, is what they say. And then on top of that, if you had a breach and you had a certain device misbehaving, that device would be isolated by the router. So this HomeKit-enabled router would essentially make sure that that doesn't get throughout the rest of your home, isolate that device, and not let anyone in or out through that device as well. So it sounds like a good approach being taken. We'll have to see how that actually works out, but this was one of the big smart home features that I think we should all pay attention to. So there you have it, guys, but there's a ton of other smart home news, and we go deeper into topics here on the channel. So what's on screen right now is our playlist for the latest smart home news. I keep that a fairly small playlist. You can go and watch what's going on in the smart home industry and really catch up on everything you need to know. Otherwise, guys, don't hate, automate.